Testing with angle probes. First of all, let's create a defect. Defect 1. Make that a bit larger. Defect 1, a large defect like that on the circumference. I'll give it some length. So here we can see in the 3D format the defect in its circumferential position. Before we can test this weld and detect this defect, we have to calibrate. To remind you, to calibrate the angle probe, this is a 60 on the V2, 25mm radius and 50mm radius. We're looking for two echoes. Set one at 25 and the other at 100. .25 represents a quarter of the screen width and 100 is at the end. So total screen distance is 100mm. Reverse the probe to the 25mm radius. This confirms our echo. We'll increase the amplitude. Click the V2 again to return to the weld. And here we can now detect this defect. I'll increase the amplitude. Now if I was looking at a part of the weld where there was no defect, we can see the root. The sound is travelling through the metal and hitting the root, hence this echo here at 40mm distance from the probe to the root. If we look at the weld defect now, that is travelled, the sound to the defect has travelled 10, 20, about 22mm. So 22 from the probe exit point, the emission point, to the defect. Now we could plot that one out. We can click the size here. The size button will just reduce the size of the UT set to give us more space. The distance of the echo, we've already said, is about 22mm. 22mm down here gives us a position of about here. Of course, if we tested from the other side, we could then mark this position. So the total distance between the two echoes is between here and here. If we're using a 45, we sometimes pick up, well, any probe, we pick up what we call geometry. There is a good root signal. And we can see some of the cap signal here as well. With a 45 degree, we get a bigger cap signal. And if we rub the cap with our finger, then we can confirm that this is the cap. If it bounces, it's bouncing. So I'll go back to the 60 degree. Again, there is the good root. Now what we can put on here is we could go to options, probe, we could go to the probe menu and select color coded display for weld geometry. So now the root will give a yellow signal, the cap will give a magenta signal here, and the defect will give a red signal. So as we move the probe, we can see it's yellow here, which means the root, drop the amplitude a bit. We're getting some echoes bouncing up here into the cap. We should be able to damp those. As we move it into the defect area, the red is indicating the defect position there. And I'll press the home key to go to 0, and I'll press auto scan by pressing the down key. You can tell me when to stop when we see the defect. Right, we should have said stop there. And of course, this color-coded display option is only for a training style. It's not part of the real ultrasonic set, but it's useful for training. That's on the probe menu, color-coded display geometry.